So, Kirk Kennedy's Corner, back with another one. It's been a minute since I've dropped a little something. I've been chilling, doing a bunch of stuff, traveling a little bit and so forth. But I wanted to get to this issue and talk about this issue. I'm sure many of you have heard this or know. Some of you probably don't even, probably might not even care for real, for real. But I just wanted to take a moment and talk about what's really going on. So, not too long ago, there was a report. I saw it on YouTube. It's kind of where I get my news and media from these days, YouTube, right? So there's a report that Migos is a rap group based out of Atlanta with three artists, Quavo, Takeoff, and Offset. Offset's married to Cardi B. And it's reporting, TMZ reported this morning that he was murdered in a bowling alley in Houston and apparently over a dice game. So I know a bunch of stuff is going to come out and a bunch of details. And so I wanted to just share something, just a perspective, before Candace Owens drops her video denigrating the black community or whoever else. And sometimes she's on point, but sometimes she's pointless and others are pointless. And so I just wanted to offer a perspective to believers when we hear stuff like this. And I want to offer just some thoughts on what I think is really going on. So if you're watching, I appreciate you. I'm just thinking out loud right now. I freestyle a lot. This isn't all prepared stuff, but I was just thinking about this driving into my office right now. So he gets killed, and not too long ago, within the last couple months, another guy, and I don't follow his music. I'm not a big Migos fan, to be honest. So this isn't like a fan who's grieving over the loss of an artist. I'm not really a Migos fan, and I wasn't a PNB Rock fan. He was killed and robbed at a Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in L.A. not too long ago. So it's kind of, and now this is going to cause a stir within the black community, at least for a short period of time, because these people are popular. So I just want to say this. What's really going on here? And I think one of the things that has happened in our culture is that because we've made everything so political, or if you follow what I do and with Strack on the channel, Cross Examine, and what I do, I call it theological, which is Christians whose moral values come from the Constitution and not the Scripture, right? So it's about that. We've gotten so political as a nation that we think everything is about politics and about race and about these things, right? Oh, look at the black community. They just, and that's you're going to hear from one angle. Look at the black community. They just do this and do that. And there's some truth to that. But there's a deeper issue going on here. And I just want to highlight that, and how the church, believers can think about this. The reality is that all people, because we're created in the image of God, there's in all of us a sense of value, right? All people have a sense of value. We're all trying to be valued on one level. It's like we're all pawn shops, if you will. We're trying to find out how much value are we worth, right? Where's our value? You can have people who don't believe in any kind of God, but they want to have a purpose in life. They want to do something, right? The average person never fantasizes about coming in second place, right? The average person doesn't fantasize and desire to come in fifth place. You want to come in first because you want to be valued. You want the people to cheer your name. You want respect. You want those things. We block people on social media because they insult us, and that devalues us, right? And so wherever people live, we have an instinctly part of being made in the image of God. This isn't a Christian thing. That's a human thing, right? There's a sense of value that all people have. We want to be valued. And we'll do sometimes things that go against even our own moral convictions just so that we can be valued by people. Bible calls that fear of man. Fear of man proves to be a snare. We care so much about what other people think. We want their value that we may disobey and not care about what God thinks, that kind of thing, right? For if you're a believer. But all people desire to be valued. And this was one of the greatest strengths of America as a nation, but it's also one of America's greatest weaknesses. So on the strength, one of the greatest strengths of America is the American dream, right? What if you really think about what the American dream is? The American dream is essentially you can have value here, right? You're not valued in your own nation the way you would be valued here. Come to America, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's all about being valued, right? That's what the American dream is. If you strip away all of the stuff about economic opportunity and merit and all these things, it's really about you can come to America and be somebody, right? Be valued. And most people want to be valued. So they'll leave the country that they grew up in, all that they've known, to go be valued in a foreign country. Now, the value in America is largely connected to capital, right? This is why we hate socialism. Most people hate socialism because socialism sort of devalues who you are from the capital standpoint. So what you have going on is America has presented itself as a value nation, and so people love it. You come here, you earn, they call it merit, right? It's value, and all of us want that. We all want to be valued. There are a few people that don't want to be liked. I mean, if you think about what depression is, depression, what it really is psychologically is that I am not valued. It's a sadness about not being able to understand or find my value, so to speak. And so when you think about all of that, right, America is the greatest nation in terms of promoting and offering people value. And so that's why they come here. That's a great strength of America. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad I'm in America, despite all its challenges, why I'm glad I was born in America and I live here. But it's also America's greatest weakness, right? Because what America did was it promised value, but then it intentionally devalued people, right? So that's what, I mean, let's just strip away all the other. Slavery was essentially devaluing people, right? What happened to the indigenous people who we formerly called Indians or Native Americans, it was a devaluation of their humanity. There's no value there, right? There's not really much value in being a slave, right? And then there were times where women just didn't have value and immigrants and so forth. So America was this country that promoted value and in its foundational documents wrote like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is essentially value. Everyone has value. Now that's not a Christian ordinance because what the value in America is essentially based on economics and it's based on merit. You work, you go to college, you do this, you get a diploma, you get a job, you get money, you can provide for your family, right? It's all about merit. But because America also has, on the other side of the coin, a history of devaluing people, sometimes based on their color, sometimes their weight, how they look, whatever, there was sort of this war happening within the American undergirding of our society, historically speaking. There was a fight for value. Everything was about who is valued in America. And while a lot of people have been devalued, I would say that Black people, Africans, African Americans, whatever you want to call, have the longest cry, right, in being devalued, right? We're the longest cry in that sense. And so when you look at American history, all of the civil rights fights, everything was about just value. I want to be valued. Stop devaluing me because of the way that I am. It's built in the DNA of all people to desire value because we're made in the image of God. Even if you don't even know who God is, you still want to be respected, right? You still want to be treated a certain way. You want to be valued. So now when you zero in on the Black community, and this is why, even though sometimes I can even agree with like a Candace Owens or different people, where I struggle with their perspective is that they really limit everything to just Black culture and politics of the left or your political opposition. But there's something deeper going on in the Black community and among people just everywhere. black people, not all black people, but there's a sense where the psychological impact of hundreds of years of not being valued has really affected many black people, particularly in the inner cities. When you're poor and you know you start to understand the history of poverty, and that like it wasn't like your family chose to live there; they had to live in that neighborhood. Those neighborhoods weren't invested in. There's a psychological impact that affects the way you view yourself and being valued. And so when you get a chance to get value, and in America, let's be clear, value is connected to money, making money. This is why we see people who are rich, they get the benefit of the doubt. You can commit a crime when you're rich and no one cares. When you're rich, you could be Hugh Hefner, right? And be 80 years old and be married to three girls who are like 22 and no one says anything, right? Because you have money. And this isn't actually an American reality. If you go back to the scriptures, remember when Jesus was talking to the rich young ruler and he said this, there's one thing you lack, sell all your possessions to the poor and come follow me. And he walked away. And then Jesus said to his disciples, it's easier for a camel, a full big old 1,800-pound camel, to go through the eye of a needle. And the Peter then responded and said, well, who then can be saved, right? They asked that question because they thought that when you have financial prosperity, that you're valued by God. You're blessed by God. You definitely are favored by God. And Jesus just flipped it on its head and said, actually, the people who are rich, it's hard for them to get the value that God provides because they have money. So Peter and them were confused, like, well, man, I thought the rich people have value. So that's not even an American reality. It's a human reality. It's happened. Who has money, who's better looking, these people have more value, right? So fast forward back to America and particularly black culture. When you have people who are like rap artists or athletes or actors, people who grow up in poverty, and this isn't just white people, black people, white people do the same things, Latinos, whoever. When you come into a lot of money, one of the things that happens is you want to show you have value now. You felt devalued for so long that you want to show you have value. So particularly within the black community, here's the first thing you'll start seeing when people get money: jewelry, right? Why do these dudes spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on jewelry? Diamonds, gold, platinum, teeth, all of it, right? They got cars. Value is so important that people would rather appear to have value than actually have it, right? But so this is why in the black community, you get money, you start showing off, look at my watch, look at this, look at that, because you've been devalued for so long. And the way that you show that you have value in America is through economic means. And so when you're black, you won't even buy a house, something that appreciates. You'll buy cars and jewelry, things that depreciate, that actually lose value. But those are the easiest ways to show that you have value so that people are like, oh, look at them, look at them. Think of shows like MTV Cribs, right? What was that? Look at how these people have value. Look at how much money they have. It is innate, and this is why we like these shows. I remember before MTV Cribs, back in the day, in the 80s, they used to have lifestyles of the rich and famous, right? And we would watch these shows and see people in these mansions. And sometimes we would imagine being them because you have value. When you've been devalued for so long, your innate desire is to prove that you have value. And so you get into these, when you become a rapper, and now the stuff that you were in the hood, now you are rapping about things that you came from, and you're making millions of dollars. You get all the girls that you want. You got the jewelry, you got everything. It's all about value. Now you're valued. But here's what happens when you're not tempered. That value starts to become a bit of arrogance. You start showing people what you have versus what they have. Right? And then other people, the people that don't have what you have, they still feel devalued, right? They still feel that. They want the same value that you have. I remember when I was younger, I used to want things that I couldn't afford. And a buddy of mine used to be like, man, you got champagne taste with beer money, right? And I used to love that phrase because it was like, yeah, man, I want things that I can't have because I can't have them. And it's about value, right? So stay with me because I'm trying to make this point so you can see where I'm at. Because there are things that are culture, but underneath all of these things, all of the sin that we see, all of the desire for affirmation, all of the robberies, All of this stuff is about value. We all of us are walking identity crises. Everyone has an identity crisis, every one of us. And we're all trying to find value in all of these things, right? So here you have people who who have value, they have financial means, and they're showing this to other people, and other people want that value. They're offended by that value. They want that. You know, PNB Rock, when he got murdered, they took his chain and all of that. Why? Because they found out he was at this place and they went there to rob him and they killed him because they want his value. They want value. And this is why they say, look, man, when you get money, you can't go into the hood anymore, those things. It's not just that it's dangerous, it's that people want to be valued. And in America, money is the greatest value. Underneath all of the struggles, let's keep it real. Let's take it out of the black community for a second. Do you know what January 6th was? What we call the insurrection at the Capitol? You know what that was? That was a group of people, largely white conservatives, who felt like they're being devalued by leftist policies. They're afraid of socialism and Biden's going to do this and do that, and so they stormed the Capitol. 6 people were killed, police officers. They were looking for why? Because they felt devalued. So this isn't just a black community thing. It's we all have in us an innate desire to feel and be valued by others. This is why people want to be in love. Why? Because there's value when someone loves you when they express that, right? So this is the reality. These are the things that happen. This is underneath all of these issues that we have is a fight to be valued. And when you've been devalued for so long in a particular culture, and I'm not saying every black person feels this way or every white person, I'm not saying that, but there are a lot of people who feel that way. You get to a point where now my value is in my economic means. I've achieved the value that America says I'm supposed to have. And you make decisions and you do things and you put yourself in situations where people who want the same value you have, they no longer value who you are. They don't value your life. They want what you have to make the value in their life much better. I remember back in the day, the Ghetto Boys, Scarface, had this song. And I remember I was in the hood back then. And I never forget how much I resonated with it. And at the end, I can't remember the name of the song, but there was a hook. It was like, the hook would say, I don't want your money. I want your life. Right? It kept repeating that. I don't want your money. I want your life. But and I know it said I want your money, not your life. Then it said I don't want your money. I want your life. Like, and I was like, wow, I can resonate with that. Some people just they you know, and you find value in being a street dude. Young Jeezy just dropped an album last Friday, and he has a song on this album called Street Cred. And in that song, he's basically saying, you can't sign $1 million contracts with street cred. I can't pay my family's bills with street cred. I can't sign, you know, I can't do all these things just with street cred. But at one point, street cred was how he built his reputation. Thug motivation 101, right? But now he realizes there's more value in what I have now. Street cred can't give me that value anymore. Everyone has value. Everyone wants to be valued. All of us do. And when you place yourself in certain situations, you have to understand that people want to be valued. But in America, the value is economics and merit, right? Merit. If you work hard, you do this, you'll have value. And this is why I say it's very theoretical, because this is what people teach. And it's not bad to do that. We should work hard. I want my children to work hard, right? I got 3 sons. I want them to work hard. But the problem is, in America, you can work hard and still be devalued. And then it becomes really frustrating. And what we're seeing happen in our society now is the accumulation of frustration of not being valued. That's why this sexuality issue exploded, where all these people are defining who they are and they want you to respect it. Because underneath it all, they just want to be valued. They're tired of feeling devalued by what they call hetero norms or whatever it is, right? It just, everyone is pushing back against value with mental health. With Kanye, my bipolar is my superpower. That joint ain't no superpower, fam. Because if it's a superpower, it's destroying that man right now, right? Look how he's carrying himself. there's a sense where we need to value everything and not be critical of anything. So what am I getting at? I don't know all the details of what happened with Takeoff from Migos, and I feel bad for his family. I will pray for his family, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to keep praying for his family. Like it's just, I'm just not going to even pretend. I ain't going to lie to y'all. Like, but I do feel like as believers, there's something that we need to understand about all of this. Doesn't matter if you like rap or not. This isn't about do you like rap or not. I'm not a Migos fan at all. Here's what we need to understand about this: is that as believers, the beautiful thing that we have is that our value is not in merit. Our value is actually the opposite of the American dream and the theme. The American dream is about value economically through merit. You earn this, you get it, it's yours. This is why, again, we hate socialism, because capitalism says, hey, I've earned this. That's my money. Let me do what I want. Great, fine. But for those of us that believe, our value is not measured by our merit. In fact, our merit could not ever get us the value that we need to even get to heaven. People say, well, I'm a good person. Well, how good is good enough? Like, good as well. Like, what's the standard of good, right? There's a value that believers have. And my concern in Strack 2 is that we're losing a hold of that value. We're trading it in for stuff like political gain and all of this stuff. So we'll be offended, angry, calling people. There's a value that we have that's the opposite of the value you get in America. In America, you have to earn value. In Christ, you're given value based on what he earned. We have no value, according to Ephesians 2 and other things. We're made in the image of God, but our value is not based on our merit. And that's a beautiful reality, because we all have identity crisis. And this is why the emphasis in the New Testament is on who you are in Christ, your identity in Christ. Paul and the other writers are spending a ton of time trying to remind you of your value. One of my favorite verses is 2 Peter 1:9. It says, look, if you're not growing in these qualities, he's referring to what he said in verses 5-7. He said, if you're not growing, you are so nearsighted that you have forgotten that you've been cleansed of your former sins. Go look that up, 2 Peter 1:9. He doesn't say, if you're not growing, you've forgotten, you're not a Christian. That's not what he says. He doesn't say you're not a Christian if you're not growing. He doesn't say if you vote this way, you're not a Christian. He says if you're not growing, you've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten your identity. You've forgotten your value. And this is what we have to offer everyone is, listen, you don't have to find your value in these things. Why did Jesus say, set your mind on things above, right? Where moth and thieves cannot destroy, because there's no value in it. All these people who are basing their value on finances or on political gain, none of that stuff is real value. None of it's real value. And what we see happening now is in our culture, you can call it leftist, you can call it you can call it the right wing, far right wing, you call it whatever you want. Underneath it all is the spirit of the age. The enemy's at work. And what he's doing is he's going after value. He's challenging value. This is what he always does. Let me prove this, and I'm going to end with this. In the garden, in the wilderness, when Jesus, Matthew 4, Mark 4, Jesus goes into the wilderness, right? Listen to what Satan, think about what Satan says to Jesus. He says this. He says, if you are the Son of God, right? Now, when Jesus got baptized, everyone who was there heard God's voice say, this is my son whom I am well pleased, right? And Jesus heard that. So he goes into the wilderness, and the first thing that Satan says is, if you are the Son of God, right? Let me attack your value as an identity. Let me attack your identity, because your identity is where you're going to find your value, right? That's where your value is. Let me attack that. Turn these stones to bread. He ain't doing it. Then he takes them with then he uses Psalm 91:11, takes them to the highest temple peak and says, look, jump off from here. And he quotes Psalm 91:11. The angels concerning you will not let your feet. He's saying, look, he's trying to trick him into saying, listen, you have value, so then use it in a sinful way. It's like, no. Then he shows them all the kingdoms in the world and said, that's what Jesus came for. Basically, look, I'll give you these. I'll give you value if you submit to me. And Jesus was like, no, I'm not doing that. Depart from me, get out of here. Satan, he didn't say depart from me, but he was like, what I'm saying? The word of God, man, does not live on bread alone. It was all scripture. The point is like, that's what everyone's after, is after value. So when you start getting political, if you find your value in political means, then that's why you see a lot of people in the church losing their minds, fighting for to take back the country for God when he said the earth is my footstool. I ain't giving God no country that's under his feet. I want to give him my life. I want to give him my life because that's what he died for. He didn't die so that he has political authority. Like he needs us to do that. He died so that the people would find their value in Jesus Christ. And that value doesn't always change your economic value, right? I know dudes who got, when I was doing prison ministry, there was a dude named Rodney. I'll never forget this dude. Big black dude, bigger than me. I need to lose some weight. I know. We'll talk about that another time. Rodney, big dude, 6'3", big dude. He was a killer for the biggest drug dealer in DC named Ray Foreman. You can look this all up. He was one of his murder. He was in his Murder Inc. crew. Killed a few dudes. Was going to prison. He was going. I remember I did the last Bible study that I led them through. He came up to me afterwards and said, "Man, Big Kurt, I appreciate you, man. I'm so excited, man. I'm a Christian now." And he said, "Man, I know that they might give me the death penalty, but he said, you know what, Big Kurt, I don't even care. I deserve it. Like, man, Jesus is my." And I'll never forget that. And I remember being just like so grateful to the Lord that he allowed me to, for a year, every week, every Wednesday, go in and teach these prisoners, man, and see them do this. And it wasn't about my teaching. I'm not that great of a teacher. It was that the truth of the gospel gave him value, so much so that he embraced his death and even acknowledged that he deserved it because his value was not found in what he did in the streets anymore. And that's the beauty of the gospel. Our value was not found in that. But brothers and sisters, we live in a world where people find their value in these things. And the reason why I'm telling you is because I think we diagnose people too sinfully. We diagnose people so critically. Underneath it all, man, people just want value. They want to be, they feel devalued for whatever reason, and they want value. And it's a strong impulse because the Lord has given us that, right? I love this. The Jews just put this in the joint. I'm gonna put this up here because it's perfect. Look at that. You are very valuable to me. Like, we are valuable to God, and we need to live like that. But also, we need to start telling people, you know, I don't know how you preach the gospel and if you preach the gospel to people, but we need to kind of reach people where they're at. And I think value, wanting value, telling people, you ever told, yeah, man, there's so much I can say right now, but I got to wrap this joint up. There's so much I feel like saying, but I'm going to probably jump back on here and say something. This is my channel and do what I want to do. But I just think the gospel of value, I'm going to say it like that, is helping people realize that you're valuable beyond this. You're not valuable because you're attractive. You're not valuable because you're in shape. You're not valuable because you're talented. That's the way we value people. You're not valuable because you have money. You're not valuable. No, you're valuable because Jesus gave you value. God said, I value you. I value you enough to send my son to die and so forth. So when we hear these stories, don't listen to the people who attack the culture of whatever happened, or don't like Paul Pelosi, right? Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked in her home. I just was on Twitter and saw a conservative kind of pundit say, I don't know if this is true or not, but hey, guess what? Looks like the person who attacked Paul Pelosi is an undocumented immigrant, right? So just to kind of almost like miss, like, how would you feel if someone broke into your what difference does it make if he's undocumented or not? He broke into your home and hurt your husband or something like that. That's what I mean. Don't do that. Don't fall into this morality that's based on American, theoreticalness, right? Don't fall into the morality of the American dream. Remind yourself that the value that you have and the value you give others is because of Christ. Christ gave you value. My value is not in any way, shape, or form connected to anything but in him. So when I see these stories, man, like the Migos star was killed and there's going to be other people to get murdered. When I see these stories, I'm sad. Not because, look at the black community. And don't get me wrong, there's something to say about that. Don't get me wrong. There's something to say about this community and that community and these things, right? But the deeper issue and why a lot of this happens is there's a psychological impact of when you feel devalued. I mean, you talk to anyone. I mean, I do a lot of marriage counseling, and honestly, underneath it all is that people just feel devalued by their spouses. You don't feel love. You don't feel all this stuff, man. It's just like so. I think, and I'm gonna put this up there because someone just said that. That's the big. You might be right, Joshua, but that's not even my point. My point isn't about. My point is that the statement that she made was a weapon. It wasn't. It just you're weaponizing people, and it's devaluing people, and that's the culture we live in, right? Let's devalue the people that don't agree with us. That's what we're at now. That's why we can say crazy things to people who profess to believe in Jesus, and as far as we know, genuinely do. We will devalue them, right? Because that's the culture we live in. I'm talking about believers. I'm talking about believers will devalue people. Jesus never did that. The only people that Jesus really went at were the religious leaders, and that's because they were misleading people. He didn't attack Christians, sinners for being sinners. He didn't do that. He wasn't doing, Jesus wouldn't have been doing YouTube videos about look at this person sinning, look at these people, look at. He understood what's really happening. He understood the real spiritual warfare that was happening and really what was inside of man. Like, Jesus could look and see what was inside people. It's he understands that. So I'm using terms the Bible doesn't, I get it, but my point is that in closing, we as believers, we have to be careful because what we're seeing in society is a massive devaluation of anyone that we disagree with. And that is not a biblical way to pursue people. Sure, there are cultures and different things. There's things to be said about black culture. There's things to be said about the left. There's things to be said about the right. There's things to be said about, okay, that's true, but ultimately we have the message of value that no one else has. And I assure you, everyone, I mean, many of us have either seen a movie or known someone who was so mistreated by like their parents, but they grew up still wanting their approval, right? That might be some of you watching right now. You did not have a good relationship with your mom or dad, but for some reason, you still want their approval. Why? Why do you still want your dad or mom's approval when they were so rude and cruel? Because that's where your original value came from. You want that value. This is why as a dad, I make sure my kids know, like if I were to die right now, God forbid, and by his grace, the one thing my kids won't say, they won't say, I don't know if my dad loved me or if he was proud of me. Because I tell them it all the time. Because it's important for them to have value. Don't look at these crimes and these situations as just people just wilding. That's the easy way out. Look at them as, wow, people really, really don't have value. They really need value. And we have the message of value for those people. What do I know, though? I'm just an ex-street dude that needs to lose some weight. Kirk Kennedy, signing off. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want. If you don't, then go with God. See y'all when I see y'all next.